I've been more scared in my entire life. I've been so scared that my senses are like of ninja-like status. I am on a diet and I've lost 300 pounds. Well, I don't even weigh 300. So the early anthropods only shot at becoming not washed out after going from the water to the land was to all grow hair to make themselves as a collective look more brutal than they actually were. And this tactic was accomplished through all of them together as a collective. This in turn is damning because they had to stay that way as their evolved trait was unreversible. Whereas things that try to evolve not to go extinct, this is how the anthropods achieved their hairiness. So when soil is shaken, the bigger soil would take more of a shake in order for it to look like a fluid. I know this because at the beach, if you take sand and push it down a hill, it'll look like a wave folding over the top of water. The next level, which is the entirety of shaking, to be harmonically oscillated. And if it achieves harmonic oscillating, you wouldn't even know it. It's like a dog whistle, or in the movie Superman when he goes to Earth, like he gets bothered like so quickly by all this trauma, and then on Earth it's just constant and he wasn't attuned to it. Greatness of the Mandela effect is that it's a constant. And so when you have a shadow and it's reaching, it reaches out. And that's why it's so creepy, is equal when like there's these shadows and they grow. Everyone's seen this effect. That's so creepy because it's so well orchestrated from it's being a constant. It's being the constant puts the shadow about the person. For the love of God. I mean, that's a really broad question, so I must be really brazen to ask it. But I'm kind of dumbfounded, so I have to relate back to something of the land. So in the land, there's different parts of it, and then the parts that are different, they're different because they're made up of material that isn't the same. But in order to categorize it, you can chronicle how much is the majority of it, and then for fun, just relate it to different diamonds. And now diamonds have different classes because there's topaz, whatever your birthstone, mine's sapphire, separate because they have the structure they grew, and then that is definite. You don't want to get confused from the definite amount into the class of what they are categorized as, or else it's like internalizing yourself to mimic plastic, whereas there's infinite many ways to smush everything inside of you together and melt it down, because plastic has very few defining attributes. So the amount of different solutions it would take for your internals to portray it are almost infinite, if not more than a lifetime to count how much. So what is domestic abuse, and then what is domestication? More appreciation for like the soil, and you could then categorize all the life in it, the organisms in the soil, and then treat them as such, where if you could just comb the dirt, dogs love digging. If we were just like combing the dirt and had some specific tools where it would cast out the harmful ones and make them like into some fertilization for the organisms that need more benefit in order to make the specific diamond of the county more refined. Like you're putting more more wood into the kiln. The more you did that, it would benefit from the other counties around them, because the other counties around them would have theirs refined off yours, and in your entire state you'd have a treasure box of diamonds. And so then this gives the melting pot of the United States like a whole new attribute, and it would be nothing short of spectacular across the board. So the classification of the entire group, if it is like an entire group of quartz, and then each quartz rock is in a specific identity, wherein the characteristic trait would be separate, like the sphere versus all the outer circumferences, which are actually in spiral, and those are inspired by the sphere because they're both circular. You know, celebrating the identities and not getting them mixed up in the complexity is something where a TV show could have the fattest police, the most fattest police, and they would be on TV, and this would incorporate the cooperation of the entire departments of which they reside in. A crash course, if you will, where they would have juveniles, some pretty trim juveniles, give them a run for their money, quite literally. Each of the police that were obese, large, would be set at some location inside of the town, and the juvenile would commit something where they would have to commit. You know, and it would just be ironic because you trust the police for security. They're there to protect and serve. Whereas if a police officer is out of shape, you're hard pressed to believe in their system. This can be indoctrinated into any groups, not just the police department. Is a specific amount of soil type inside each county, like Emerald City in the Wizard of Oz. Okay, this is where I'm going. They already have their state birds. Then your county would take the sun each day and see the how much it's absorbed into the soil and the rock bedding. And this would be articulated of each and every day. It could just be like a meteorologist when they tell you the weather. Well, they'll tell you the absorption of how well refined each. That would help. And it's something as easy as the stars twinkling, when in the sunrise they're all blocked out, but in the sunset you're able to see them fully. Well, each one of them twinkles are actually guiding in the entire sheet of darkness, or the entire opening of the curtain from dark to light. And that's what the bedding is inside of the sunshine. Just as your metabolism's orchestrated with the nutrients going into your bloodstream, the curtain rising of the night to day has the same aptitudes of all the twinkles of the stars onto the planet, because they contribute to the sunrise. If anything, it would be just an attempt to avoid a common mistake where, you know, something would want to be vibrant, especially if it's the soil being enriched. You'd be saying, oh, I want the most vibrant soil. But then it would be a common mistake to try to have the soil emulate uranium. Just because uranium is the most radioactive, it is also the most vibrant. It's just a common mistake if it's not articulate. And it's so complex that you can't really see it, but you might catch a morning star, and that's proof of it. And then in the water cycle, the airwaves are imminent because they're in between the atmosphere and the soil. And so what if the morning stars were so articulate to see at the points on land where you could see the difference of them appearing based off of how well the soil was cultivated? You'd be calibrating the airwaves between if you did it right. So I think I was a bit too blunt, where your body, obviously it's always having like metabolization, and so there's going to be infinite amount of relations if you're trying to orchestrate at any point of time.